fans, welcome in to the Midtown Madness podcast with Peter Hale and Zach Miller. We've got a great show for you on tap. Peter Hale's with me right now, but first we got to kick it over to baseball coach Darin Hendrickson. We had a great talk with him. We weren't sure if we were going to have content for this episode, so we went ahead and scheduled Hendo. Thank goodness they played Richmond though today. Basketball team did. So we are going to talk about that, but this interview is awesome and you got to hear it. So we're going to kick it over there right now. Billiken fans, we got a great special guest for you guys. He's heading into his 15th season with the Billikens. He is, I believe, the second longest tenured head coach at St. Louis University currently. He has elevated a baseball program that struggled in the years prior to his arrival at SLU. He's made the NCAA tournament a number of times now, most recently in, I believe, 2018 when he took his Billikens to Ole Miss. Darin Hendrickson, Hendo, welcome to the pod, man.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I'm glad to be here, ready to rock.
Yeah, baseball is one of those sports, man. It's a tough job up here, north of like the Mason-Dixon line.
It's a tough job everywhere, but you're right, Zach. It's we try not to let that bother us. We're kind of used to it. I guess we're all from the area, so we just this is how we roll. But yeah, it's definitely not soccer. It's not basketball. It's not played in a controlled environment, and there's a lot of obstacles that go into it, but you know what? We wouldn't have it any other way, and we don't have any excuses. It's a lot of fun.
Talk about, the difficulties in that early season scheduling. You have the St. Louis weather that's almost, it's world famous for its bipolar nature. Talk about having to go on the road, almost constantly for the first, month of the season.
Well, it's, there's two main things to having success, in my opinion, in our sport especially, and that's scheduling and recruiting. And I say that as serious as I can be about the schedule part. It is probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest part of my job, is putting together the right schedule. If you go back to 18, when we had a great team and we went to the regional, as you mentioned, Ole Miss, we started out, I believe, 1-8. Some of our better teams, we've started out 1-7, 0-8, 2-5. I mean, you kind of got to not worry and say we're going to get too far behind the 8 ball and not be able to recover, because once you get out of that warm weather trips, that month you mentioned, it's really 3 weeks for us now, because the global warming thing has gone crazy for us. As far as March 1st, we're able to play at home, knock on wood, it seems like. So I think my job is, and I've been pretty good about it. Obviously I'm an intense guy out there, and I've tried to build this thing brick by brick and with my bare hands, and a lot of great assistants and great players, obviously. So we don't use it as a crutch. And we've got to do a good job of holding the guys together, because we know what's coming down the road. And if you look back to that 18 team, especially, we were 1-7, and then we won 15 games in a row. And, when you get back home, then it feels like, well, everybody forgets the first 3 weeks of the season. And plus you're playing better competition usually at the start. If you look at our schedule at the beginning of the year, the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we've played some monster people early, and that's all by design. And then you kind of get home and you even bring northern teams down to SLU. So I feel like we've had a home field edge for a lot of years, in that March run.
Coach, to kind of piggyback on a phrase you used there, brick by brick, you've kind of overseen some big improvements to the facilities, like the turf infield, indoor hitting and pitching facility. You guys are going to benefit from the new Champion Center they're putting on campus as well. What other do you have any other kind of capital projects in mind as you're looking at the long term for this program?
Oh yeah, gosh, we're not even close. I know it sounds crazy, but we are just trying to catch up. And, in all honesty, Chris May's been the first athletic director that's ever been able to do anything like this in the history of SLU. And, it just, for whatever reason, and that's history. None of us were there, but we are now in the next phases of, for instance, Peter, we use the indoor pretty much every single day, minus Christmas break. We use it every single day we are on campus. It's that important to us. And, but I will say, there's a nice surprise coming to the field this spring. And then certainly, we all know what we need. We know we need seating and bleachers, and
Yeah.
everyone understands it. It takes donor help. LSU, Arizona State, UCLA, all those facilities are built with donor money too. And that's one thing people don't understand. I think in the real world, they start barking at SLU to, buck up and do this and that. Well, the Champion Center is not being built, and on and on. What I'm saying is that's the way college athletics is, and so I think you're going to find a nice improvement this spring to really make the field look feel like a stadium. I'll put it that way. But, ultimately we need to name the stadium after someone. Someone needs to step up and have a partnership that makes sense for both parties. And that's what every other stadium around the country has done, and we've unfortunately had to do it a little slower than I would have liked, and probably Chris would have liked, and others would have liked. But, it is what it is. And we've improved the program by miles since when we got here. And that goes for all of us. And I mean that sincerely. That's something I'm really proud of, because it took a long time in a village to do that. But, if you don't keep going, you're yesterday's news. And I mean, literally yesterday, like not a month ago, a year ago, 2018 team seems like forever. And we've got to keep going. And baseball has just gotten crazy, and we've got to keep up, or else we're going to be like a lot of other A10 programs that are just floundering and may have their one good year out of 4. But, the transfer portal is going to have something to do with that too.
You mentioned the upgrades that we might see this spring, and I've of course been banging the drum. I think baseball has a huge you guys have a huge opportunity there at that stadium. It could look really nice. Is there a stadium out there that you've been to that you would love to, if you had your druthers, you would model after?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. That's that's what I do a lot. And we've, I look and say, okay, we're not going to build Busch Stadium. We don't need to buy a piece of land and start over. We've got a great field in a great setting. I mean, the soccer team's right there. It's getting massive upgrades. Beautiful place right there. And obviously they went off the charts this year. Both men and women just are amazing right now. So we're trying to build with their momentum. And look, our guys want to be like they are. I mean, our guys deserve that kind of stuff. I mean, but that takes, it's just some chicken and egg too. You've got to find the donors and the people that are interested, but it's a hard thing for us. I would say the stadiums though, that I'd like, are some Big Ten stadiums that, Big Ten has modest baseball facilities for the most part. And I say modest, and people probably laugh at me, but I would take any of their stadiums, but everybody's unique. Everybody didn't build it overnight. X, Y, and Z schools are upgrading, adding to. But college baseball, there's a lot of, just misinformation about how things are done. And like I said, usually the stadium's named after someone and the field's named after someone. So you kind of have 2 donors or 2 lead donors, lead gifts. But in our case, I think having the Cardinals in town helps us, but I think it also may take away from some of that other, usually the schools that are doing really cool things in baseball don't have a pro baseball team in their town. If you think about it, Creighton has TD Ameritrade, kind of a similar Jesuit school like us. We used to be pretty equal. Now Creighton's always been historically better and, longer lasting, but mostly because they play the World Series there, and it's Omaha, things like that. So I would say, to answer your question in a long way, but it is a long answer because there's not really, I would like bits and pieces of each. And our situation's unique because, as you've seen the facility, you can't go backwards behind our stadium. It's the running track's there and the soccer stadium's there. So I guess my real wish for everybody to win would be to have a soccer entrance and a baseball entrance together right there. And you go one way to baseball and one way to soccer. Now, I'm not an architect, but I've certainly drawn it out a lot. And it's probably the number one missing piece to our entire program, without question. It hurts me after this long that we, haven't been able to, I've stumbled and not been able to make a connection with the right person to get that lead gift, but it's a lot of money. It's not, something that's, I'm not beating myself up either. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of commitment, and it really takes a unique fitting with somebody that has an affinity to the program and a great relationship. And, coaches are antsy. For me, it's taken way too long, but who knows? We're still optimistic, and we look forward to a good 22.
Do you think it's hard to find somebody that's, again, you said chicken or the egg. Do you think it's at times it's hard to find that person? The stadium as is, it's not a great place to go and enjoy yourself for 2.5 hours. I mean, unless you are a absolute diehard baseball fan, in the middle of April, on metal bleachers. Do you think that is a hurdle too already?
Oh yeah, no question. I mean, and everyone knows. It's like, look, it's not like we're, it's not like administration doesn't know, coaches don't know, recruits don't know, families don't know, alums. Everyone knows. It's just sort of, it takes a unique match to say, this is something I really truly believe in, and I have the ability to do. I mean, let's face it, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I don't know. That's probably even made it harder to really put your neck out there and do this. So I get it. It's like this is not just an easy thing, or I'm trying to convince a recruit to come to our school. This is a big, big deal. And I mean, Chris and those guys worked their tails off getting the Champions Center over a long period. That wasn't built overnight or created overnight. So those kinds of things. Chaffetz Arena, let's go back there. That was a long-standing deal that was being plotted out for years. We knew we weren't going to keep playing in West Pine and, Enterprise now, but you know what I'm talking about. It just, these things take time. And unfortunately, I would have liked to have seen it done by now, but we have made significant upgrades. Let's not kid each other too, Zach and Peter. I mean, the program, back in 07 was just in really, really rock bottom shape. But that came from a lot of apathy, a lot of years of being in the wrong conference, and not a lot of people cared about it at all. And some people didn't even know they had a baseball team. I'm being serious about that. If you look back in the days, it was low stuff. Low hanging fruit was, it was bad, and for lack of better terms. But, we all came in together. We tried to make the programs better across the board. And I think SLU's done that in every sport. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. I really do. And we've tried. It's hard. Winning's hard. And college baseball in the Midwest, as you know, if you're a mid-major, my goodness, I mean, you got to remember before 07, when we arrived, SLU had been to the NCAA tournament 2 times. One was 06, and one was, when they went to the World Series in the 50s. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. The 50s. Thank you. But let that sink in.
Yeah. We talk a lot about, what the women's basketball program has done, and how people don't realize that how rough a shape it was when Lisa took over. But yeah, you're totally right.
I'm curious in a few different ways about recruiting. Obviously people who listen to this show know I like to track basketball recruiting pretty closely, but you just talked about recruiting to a baseball program in the Midwest. And I'm curious, what's the unique set of challenges that you face there? We've already covered, the facilities and how, you're kind of limited by the facilities, but I'm curious about things like the fact that SLU's a private school and you've only got so many scholarships to work with. the fact that you can't necessarily have the full practice year round kind of environment. So what are you up against in terms of recruiting?
Well, I'll tell you, when we first got to SLU, we tried to, and I keep saying we because I had a great group of coaches at the beginning of this that really laid the foundation for the recruiting. And I want them to always be mentioned until the last time we talk about SLU, because they were a big piece of this. And, but I think we all saw SLU as people said, don't take the job. You can't win there. They don't care about baseball. It's impossible. X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. Well, we took it all and turned it on its head and said, well, we're going to try, and we're going to give it everything in our tank to get it done. And I think the record shows that we were able to do the best we could. Do we have a ceiling? Possibly. Like I said, you got to keep moving. But I think to look at that, a lot of people look at academics as a hindrance. I did not at all. That's why I like working at SLU, quite frankly. The kind of kid we get is off the charts. That's my first and foremost answer. There's hindrances. There's class times that are not strategic. There's very rigid majors that allow, no flexibility. But that's all okay. We've made it through all that. Budget wise, we're fine. But, facility in today's world of high school kids, high schools are getting upgrades at their facilities like crazy. It is what it is, right? But that's the one piece that's still missing, and that doesn't mean we're going to get X, Y, and Z better player all the time, but we treat it as a balance. We treated it like a miniature Vanderbilt or Rice at the time. Of course, Rice isn't as relevant as they were, and Vanderbilt's gone to the ridiculously off the charts. So somewhere in the middle, we've treated it where academics are really good and baseball is really good. Because I think when we got here, academics were really good and baseball was kind of, if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. The culture was not healthy from a winning standpoint and believing standpoint and positive standpoint. And, and I pushed the boundaries. I'm not going to sit back, and I was trying to win and I wanted to elevate the program. That's what I was hired to do. But I also needed, to realize that there are some limitations and you got to kind of fight those. But I would say when people first, the easiest answer too, Peter, besides the great kids and their families, when you walk on the campus now versus maybe 07 or, 05, 04, back in the days when I brought my other teams here, it's a beautiful campus beyond words now. It's just a great place to visit. You walk through Chaffetz Arena, you bring someone to a basketball game, a soccer game, a volleyball. It's just a great place. And that's something that we probably didn't have in 07 when we first got here. So that's the thing I'm really proud of, to see our school's growth, our commitment to winning, and where we came from since 07. You guys know, you were in West Pine. I got hit in the head my first year in batting practice to the SLU guys up in the top of West Pine off of a pipe. And right then I knew we needed to get some new facility. Now that could happen anywhere. There's a lot of coaches been hit, and I've been hit a lot of times at the Cardinals. I'm just saying, we've come a long way, and for that I'm very proud. And Chris has had a lot to do with that, because not a lot of other ADs got anything done with baseball. They didn't care, and I don't care. I'll say it out loud here. They didn't care, but they were also guided by other things too, and we've just elevated everything, in my opinion, because I know SLU, I'm from here, and I've seen the area, and I'm really proud of the entire group's combined effort. But we need more. We do. We all need more to win, and we're competitive people. It's in our DNA, and we want to win. For me to sit still and finish wherever in the A10 is not my goal at all. That does nothing for us. It doesn't move our needle anymore.
Yeah.
We talk. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say, back in my day when basketball also practiced in the West Pine gym, it was fun to run a basketball practice, and then you would hear the plink, plink, plink of the batting cages up in the corners of the gym. So yeah, we both had a long way to go in that. You mentioned the caliber of student athlete that you're getting. I'm wondering, are you mostly looking to draw from the St. Louis and kind of bi-state region? Where are you trying to kind of mostly recruit out of?
Well, that's been a moving target. We've done really well in Chicago. I think
Mhm.
Chicago kids gravitate, families and players gravitate towards St. Louis. I-55 corridor is an easy one to get to. It's south. It's a lot warmer. I know that sounds crazy today when it's 7 degrees out, but I do think that that's been a big thing for us. But yes, we'd like for kids to stay home, just like Travis has started doing, and Katie and Kevin and Kent. I mean, Christy. I mean, we've gotten St. Louis kids to stay, and when you do that, I think you tend to bring more attention to your program. But recruiting's changed. It's kids just want to leave sometimes home just to go away, just to say they're going to go away. So in this day and age, you might get them on the second time. But I would say that 4 to 5 hour radius, KC, Chicago, St. Louis, and then a tad south. And then we've got a few East Coast kids sprinkled in too with the A10 footprint. So I think that's always going to be there as long as we're A10 members. And I don't see much of that changing. But any St. Louis kid that wants to stay and play in front of his family and hometown, we're all for that.
And how much these days are you trying to balance the portal with high school? I know that's been a really dramatic shift for coaches in other sports. I guess you guys are seeing that too.
It's 3,300 and something kids were in the portal last summer in our sport. It's not healthy in the long run, but it's a necessary evil, and it's where we are in 2022. So we adapt and we adjust accordingly. It's just like coaching in a game almost. You have to change on the fly sometimes. And I think, though, that the road that it could create is not awful for either party, though. Sometimes, I had this discussion the other night with another forum, and it's really an interesting topic. But in a nutshell, quickly, the rules set up as they are currently with kids committing so early and not signing NLIs is a real major problem, in my opinion, for deterring this. And I think if that would stop, they would stop recruiting. Because if I was a Power 5 coach, I would probably have to do that the way they recruit as well. Sign 50 kids, and then you have to cut X, Y, and Z before January hits. Well, that for me, I don't like that. I don't like any of that stuff going in, but it has to happen sometimes. The old days of, this is my word in 4 years and I'm going to stay with you and you're going to stay with me. I mean, life's changing fast. And I think it gives both parties some freedom. And I don't think it's an awful thing. I'm going to be honest. And, people are out there saying, oh, this is bad for, coaches can get up and leave and go to Notre Dame and make X, a gazillion dollars, but players have to stay. Well, not anymore. Players are getting a lot of more freedom. And maybe that's good. I don't have a problem with that at all, because I always said, if a guy doesn't want to be at SLU, I don't want him. We don't try to hang on to kids who don't want to be here, and vice versa. We're not for everybody all the time, and vice versa. Coaches, this is not utopia. This is a hard deal every day in every sport. And you got people in their ear, you got the noise over there, you got select coaches, all that good stuff. It's just, there's a lot of voices out there. It makes our job really, really hard, but really, really rewarding too.
You mentioned the transfer portal, and I gotta apologize. I tried my best to get in the ear of a family friend. He was over in Middle Tennessee, but he's ended up transferred to Mizzou. I tried. But anyway. Okay. No, you've got 7 guys coming in this season. You brought them in for this fall. Coming off a tough season and coming off even, tougher situation in 2020 where you only got, I think, 16 games in. What do you got coming in, and what can the listeners of our podcast expect to see of the new guys if they come out to the baseball field?
That's a great question, Zach. And it goes back to Peter's thing about, why do you, or what attracts kids to SLU and where do you get kids and all this? And I would tell you that our university helped us seal the deal with a lot of these kids. Our grad school is very good, and it has a lot of options that are flexible: 1 year, 18-month, 2 year, things like that. So a lot of people don't have that. The Ivy League has to leave. If you're done with COVID and your eligibility is over, you're out. And so you're seeing those guys lose some of their best, arguably all of their best players who didn't get to play that extra year. So we were able to take advantage, and I will tell you the stars aligned for us on paper. Now we haven't played a game yet, and I'm going to have coach speak going on here for a minute. But when we get out there, we will look like the teams we played last year. Quite frankly, we tried to dismiss last year between COVID, between 4-game weekends were not our friend. No one has pitching for 4-game weekends. 9-inning games are hard enough. And then you put 4 of them. I mean, you don't plan for that, right? So, but our administrators, our people in the A10 let us play a schedule. So for that, I'm grateful. They SLU let us play almost all of our games that we are allowed, literally up to the 56, which not many schools did that. And we as a group got all of our games in under our control. Now we lost 11 games to COVID due to the opponents, but anyway, that one's over. So what we did is we said, okay, we don't know what this portal is going to look like. It was the first year for it. So we started out in the summer, and my assistants and I basically had to relearn how to recruit because we didn't know if, like you mentioned, X, Y, or Z kid was going to want to come back home and go to SLU for his last year, play in front of mom and dad for their last year, on and on and on. And I think that the way it all shook out for us and our needs positionally, it worked really, really well. We could not have done better, in my opinion, except for, you're always looking at, boy, I wish I'd have had an arm or two or this guy. But you know what? They used to say it all the time. And Lou Holtz was the king of saying, don't worry about the ones that go away. And we had 7 guys that they're all going to make an impact in some way. I think they're all going to see significant time. They're all experienced players to go with a core group of returners. I think our best players are returning overall when you stop and look at it, minus, maybe 1 or 2 guys but I think when you stop and take a breath and you look the way they all complement each other now, this feels like a team that, we still have some guys that haven't played a game together, but we did get a full fall in, and we have 4 transfers from Missouri. They had a terrible year last year as a team, but they also played in the best conference in America. And so you got to throw all that out. And I think we did a good job of overlooking that. You can't just go, well, that guy doesn't have stats or this numbers or whatever. Well, that doesn't, that's going to translate from the SEC to the A10 is a massive jump. So I think that's going to translate well. And the other pieces that we got as well, we have a player that played in, a regional final in Dom Cusimano. I think you know who that is. That's Frank's son. And, from Channel 5, we've got, and then 2 other pitchers that I think are going to be massive impacts for us, Logan Schmidt and Colton Hutt. So I think when you stop and go, okay, and then you've got, you go back to a Mark Vierling, who is a local guy, CBC guy. His brother's in the big leagues now for the Phillies. And Mark is a very gifted player, but he's a CBC kid that decided to come back home. And I think he kind of led the charge for us to get that group to go with Cam Swanger and Cam Fair and then Mark. And I think when you stop and take your breath and go, okay, these guys, this is way different than adding 7 freshmen or, a couple JUCO guys. And we've got a really gritty player in Cody Jansen and who's going to help Cam Redding a lot. But, looking at the current team, Cam Redding and Kyle Fitzgerald, I think, are the 2 guys that I would look to offensively to really have pretty darn good years. I mean, they've been pretty consistent, and now they've got protection, and the lineup feels a lot more dangerous. And then I think at the top with Colton Schild and Matt Torinos of the world, and I'm going to sit here and talk about our whole team, but I think that's the key. But the real key is the pitching piece for me. It's got to be better. We've notoriously pitched the ball as good as anyone in the A10 for many years. We've had, been in the top 3 to 4 every single year for a long time. And we lost that the last couple of years. And I took that personal because, I have a hand in pitching and I take responsibility, and we've got to do better. We've got to recruit better, and we've got to get outs a lot better than we did. We gave a lot of free bases last year. And I still give our pitchers a mulligan because of the 9 innings. I'm telling you, guys just got out of their lane, and they were end up in 3 innings at a time where they should have been in 1 and 2 innings roles. It just they were over their heads, not to their fault. So I still, I don't make excuses, but I do defend our guys there. I defend our players last year. It was not a normal year, and some of our seniors, I think, felt that mentally. It wore them down, and I think you had the perfect recipe for a tough deal.
Yeah, you mentioned the pitching, and one of my I want to get your take, because one of my favorite things when I watch a college baseball game is once the game gets to the bullpen, because it is an absolute shit show. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen at that point. How tough is it to build a bullpen and kind of finish off a game when your starting pitcher doesn't go that well, like doesn't go 5 to 7 innings?
Well, I'll tell you what, Zach, is what we've seen, what's happened at the mid-major level especially, but the game has changed so much at the training level. Kids are being trained, because this will answer your question. The kids are trained at, to blow it out, velo. They're not trained to go 7 or 8 deep at all. They don't do it in the summer. Let's say X, Y, and Z college coaches are popping in. Hey, that kid's going to throw 1 or 2 innings today in front of you. And then you get out of town and go see the other kid or go to the other field or go wherever. And for me, that's where it's all starting. Kids are not training to throw 7 and 8 innings. And it's a food chain deal though too. Like I said, I mentioned the mid-majors. There's not a lot of mid-majors that have 3, 7 or 8 inning pitchers. So, if you look at some of the teams that are, it's like pro ball where you use the opener. We really turned this thing on its head over fall and decided maybe we ought to just maybe use a potential opener in some cases, not 1 inning, but maybe 3 innings is it. VCU does a little bit of that. They have a hybrid situation with their starters. They've done pretty darn well with it because they try to win those midweek games against ranked teams to get their RPI way up. And I think when you start looking at all that, you say, why are we getting frustrated with our guys when they're not really conditioned or trained to go 7 innings? Well, we try to condition them to throw 7 innings. That's not us. I mean, but I'm saying is, but they've been trained their whole life kind of the same way. And so I think we have to really look at that and take a breath. But the bullpen for us has always been our strength. And I say that in all seriousness. Ryan Leffner was our closer for 4 years. We had our same closer for 4 years. He broke the all-time saves record by a mile. But he closed freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. So that's a rarity to have a freshman closer. And I would say every year in the A10 tournament, going back for years, we won it 5 years in a row. Not the tournament, excuse me, but we won the league 5 years in a row. But playing in the tournament every year, and 5 of those in a row were the 1 seed. And we watched starter after starter be in the 90 to 100 inning range from every school imaginable, fall on their face on opening day because they were just gassed. And we always felt like, I always just was observant about that. And I said, man, we have got to pace our starters. If you notice, we never had a lot of complete games when we had Miller Hogan, when we had James Norwood, we had Matt Eckelman, when we had Connor Lehman, when we had Cody Luther, on. And I could just start naming all the pitchers that started. They could have finished a lot of games, but I pulled them out on purpose because I knew that May 24th was coming. Not like we invented the wheel there. And I'm just saying it really is a big thing. So I think watching your guys' innings limit is really key because, man, there's some tired puppies in that A10 tournament at the end.
I'm going to throw this one at you because he's a good friend of mine, but we got to talk about Bryant Cotton in 2010.
No.
You threw that dude so many what was it? What was 120 pitches in a game?
Yeah, and he probably would have thrown 140, but I had to yank him off the mound. He was a rubber arm. You know, he was a lot like I was as a player, as a pitcher, and he just he oozed enthusiasm. He's one of my favorite people, much less players. But he was a senior. He wanted to let it all hang out, and he knew he wasn't going to, play the rest of his life. It wasn't like we were protecting his arm from he didn't opt out of a bowl game because he wanted to save his arm. He was just, he's a great Billiken, for the record. And, when he had to pitch that game at, Charlotte, I just watched the replay of it the other day because I watch it every Christmas when he pitched the opening game of the A-10 tournament and then closed the game against Charlotte with the bases loaded. He struck out their best hitter, and we won 5-4 in 2010 and went to Louisville Regional. And Cotton was, the MVP, of course. But my point is, like, he just, I wasn't worried about hurting his arm. I'll tell you that. I would have paid for his surgery.
Send me that game over. I'll get it up on YouTube.
Oh, it's amazing. It's just the last part of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I remember that that stadium was awesome.
Yeah, Campbell's, New Jersey. It's something I'll never forget. But great minor league stadium.
Currently, there's the schedule hasn't been released yet for the spring season. Do you have any idea when you will be releasing that? And can you give us a little taste of what?
Sure, I can tell you everything today. It's only hasn't been released because we have an opponent that hasn't sent their contract back yet. They had an administrative change, so giving you that little background, but nothing that our schedule's done. We open up in Hoover, Alabama, which we've done a lot lately. They seem to be a nice bus trip. Families can go. We're at the Met, home of the SEC tournament, which is a phenomenal venue. They have a turf backup in case of rain or craziness, but it's just a good place we were supposed to be in a tournament there. We're playing Bowling Green to open the season there.
That seems to be a thing you do a lot too. Bowling Green.
Oh, we've only played them twice, but back in 2020, and now this. But yeah, it was the first time I had played them actually in my tenure. Then we go to Oral Roberts for a return trip from last year, and they're always unbelievable. That's a great program, unbelievable mid-major. They care about athletics. They put their money into it, and it's going to be a tough weekend. Then we come home. I talked about that early, but with COVID and travel, I just didn't want to get ourselves into a Florida or California trip like we usually do. And then it get banged at the last second and you're like, oh, now where do I go? And something might happen. So I kind of played it on the side of buses and then I got some people to come home. So, and I'll talk about our midweeks because they're very important in a minute, but we've got Northern Colorado, Austin P, and Purdue Fort Wayne all coming through. Remember, I always talk to you about the home series, trying to get yourself, on your feet back home. And it just worked out this year with the turf and kind of hopefully knock on wood, mild temperatures. I say that, and I just cursed this, but and then we've got Illinois State up there for a weekend, and that's a great Valley opponent. They've been tremendous the last couple of years, and I think that's going to be a real test right before we open the A-10 at Fordham. And our road trips on the A-10 are at Fordham, at St. Joe's, at Rhode Island in late May, which is a nice probably time to go there, from the standpoint of where we stay. And you've kind of seen that area. And then we go to George Mason, but we get Davidson, Richmond, Dayton. The last weekend of the season is Dayton at home. I think that was done on purpose. I hope so, because that's something that we can't wait for. I will flat out tell you, there's not a lot of love lost there, and that's the way it's going to be. So that's, that'll be fun. We've got the Bonnies at home, but our midweeks are fun this year. SIUE, SEMO, at Mizzou, at Missouri State. Mizzou came to us last year. We lost 2-1. We pitched a freshman. Actually, it was his first college start, and we lost 2-1 to an SEC school. I'm thinking, that's kind of the way our year went, but we weren't 25 million miles away. We lost a lot of tight ones, and I think us getting another crack to go and play those interstate schools and kind of the Midwest rivals. Those are fun games for our kids. And I think you're going to see, our guys really get excited for that midweek. And we end up, our last midweek's at Carbondale. They've got a new $4 million stadium. They put a lot of effort into it with their alumni and donor groups. They built a beautiful setup down there. So really a neat place to watch a game. So I think our schedule's, it's balanced. It's not super sexy. It's kind of 2021, 2022. It's COVID-ish, and it's got a little bit of flavor to it, but it's also smart, I think, and from a budget standpoint, and also from a geographical standpoint, and we fly enough in the A10. I'll be quite honest with you guys. That our guys don't need to be on airplanes, twice in the preseason. That's a long deal. That wears you down, as more than anyone knows, especially in today's world, flying commercial. You don't want to get stuck somewhere on a Sunday night, and it's just not fun.
Coach, one of the things I've noticed during your tenure, and you mentioned it earlier in the show, not many other schools have a Major League Baseball team a few miles away in the same city. It seems like you guys have developed a nice relationship with the Cardinals, whether it's SLU night at the ballpark, or I know you guys played a game there as recently as September. So I'm just kind of wondering what that relationship is like and how that came about, and what else we might see come of that.
Well, I think, number one, I give full credit to them for being able to reach out to us. I do think that, I innocently started when I was 25 years old throwing batting practice for them. And I have not been told not to come back ever since, and I'm 2 now. So this last year would have been my 27th year, coming up. And I'm thinking, just do your job, be quiet, make some friendships. And the reason I stay in this, Peter, is to do this. And this answers your question, but it is really the reason is that to keep this community relationship for SLU. Because batting practice is batting practice, right? I mean, at my age, it kind of gets you, you've had your fun. You've run the gamut of all kinds of seeing all kinds of players and stuff. It's still fun. Don't get me wrong. But I think now you stay in it. And, if you get a chance to be around Mike Maddox and Jose Oquendo and Mike Schilt and Tony La Russa and Mike Matheny, and I'm going to keep saying Jose Oquendo until the cows come home. But I mean, there's no better teacher of the game right there in your back pocket. Then you watch Adam Wainwright, Chris Carpenter throw bullpens. And I'm not name dropping here, but I am trying to say that there's a lot of value that people don't ever see that comes out of that deal. And for me to stay in touch down there and still go through with all that and then reward our kids with a game at Busch, or, our first year we played the Cardinals to honor the city of Kirkwood in Jupiter. So they were so gracious about, bringing us down. They've been the guest speaker at all my first pitch dinners. One of them, some of them, Mozeliak, Schilt, Tony. We had a private dinner. Ozzie Smith, Willie. I mean, it's been an unbelievable partnership that I will look back on one day, and I'm very, very proud of that sort of organic growth to that whole relationship, because, they don't have to do a lot. They get asked a lot of things, and certainly we're probably, not on the highest on the list of things, but I think when you just try to use common sense and keep helping your program, and like we said, brick by brick, and this is a perfect example of it. But I think that the BP thing, innocently, like I said, no one's ever said, come back, don't come back. They just keep having me back. And I think that as long as I can hold my right arm on and go down there and, keep my head looking straight ahead, I think that this could go on for a while.
You got the All-Star Game jersey behind you, and it's super cool. And also, I've noticed, as I think a lot of people know, I'm a big time, I'm a uni watcher. There's a website out there. I think you've heard of it. I don't really like the writer, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, you guys always tend to have some cool gear. Is that something you take pride in, or do you have an assistant that takes pride in it, or how does that all come about?
I have designed one uniform in my entire days here. I maybe more, but I think one, and that's the old Dodger replica white uniform with St. Louis across the chest in script. And that's the one I'm the most proud of. But no, I don't take full credit or any credit for this. I go back to our assistant coaches, namely Will Bradley, who he was obviously, he meant a lot to SLU baseball. He was unbelievable at the computer. He was very creative, and he had a keen eye to, hey, this is what kids would want to see. Plus, let's face it, Billikens is kind of a unique, pretty cool logo if you do it upright for a lot of kids, you know, and adults. Adults are almost worse than the kids with liking our gear, i.e. Zach Miller. So I think when you stop and take a breath and go, man, we've had some cool stuff. And we do. You know, I've got every jersey we've ever worn in my garage. And someday I'm gonna get them all in a frame, and when it's all over, I'm gonna keep them, because I always said these are they might just be a jersey to somebody, but you look back at all the years of what we've had and how our branding and our logo has changed. And I like our old stuff. I like a lot of the old school, maybe because I'm 50, year old man instead of an 18-year-old, but I think the old stuff's cool. I think we've always done a great job with our Billikens work, and people like our hat, they like our jersey, and no one's ever said, man, you guys don't look the part out there. But hey, if you can't win all the games, you got to at least look the part.
Yeah, it's like they said in Space Jam, looks good in that uniform. You can't teach
That's
it.
right. That's right.
You mentioned the computer. You said the word computer, and it triggered something in my brain. I don't know if you even were privy to this, but the George Mason controversy last year.
Oh, yeah.
Do you whatever happened with that? If you can't talk about.
Yeah, Zach, you cut out there a little bit for a second, but yeah, just I think what he's saying is just whatever you can share about that situation.
Well, first of all, in all my years of baseball, it's got to be arguably the most silliest event that ever happened. We have a system called FlightScope that we've used for 10 years, basically 10, I believe. And it's like metrics. So it measures spin rates and all kinds of, it can do whatever you want on your pitches, your hits, exit velo, you name it. So they were not familiar with this, and it doesn't surprise me when I figured it all out and went through the deal, but it was this, so stadiums have radar guns up now all over the stadiums. In college, they're legal. SLU will have one up this year, okay? But they're legal in every stadium, and it will show 91, 89, 74, whatever. So our manager innocently, literally, is telling our guy how hard he's throwing on one pitch when he's walking off the field. And they thought we were stealing signs. We weren't even paying, there were no signs. It was not a sign, there was no sign. Now, let me be clear. The rule states you are not allowed to transmit any stuff to the dugout. Okay. Well, he was walking off the field or to the playing field. I can read the rule to you, but I'm not going to bore the people. But my point is, technically, you're not supposed to say you're throwing 91, even though the radar stadium gun might say that. Well, the stadium doesn't have that. Okay. But it had nothing to do with George Mason, had nothing to do with the signs or the opponent or anything like that. I was frankly disappointed in, policing your own game. The umpires came over and asked me what happened, what do we got going? I told them specifically. I'm in the dugout. I don't even know any of this is happening. And I'm telling you everything. I'm being very honest, probably too honest.
We like that.
No, but in all seriousness, it was just silliness, to be quite honest with you. And, it had its place, and then some website tries to run with it. He's trying to, make it something out of nothing. And that was it. And, I'm not going to downplay it because, I told our young guy, hey, we can't be telling a guy how hard he's throwing or whatever until, it's over. There's no transmission of signals. It can't go on. But if you knew this guy, he's, John Burroughs grad, the nicest person on the planet, felt awful about it, went home and literally he's a great guy. He was a great help to our program. And, I felt bad for him. Just an unfortunate deal of being a little overzealous. But everybody, I would say, venture to say that probably every team that doesn't have a gun probably tells their pitcher how hard they're throwing across the nation, in some capacity. And I don't know what way that is. It could be texting coaches. It can be all that kind of stuff. It's so ridiculous. It's a little bit like the pine tar thing. So you're going to call me out on my pine tar and your guy's got his pants all, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Who cares if it's 88 or 89? We lost to them the day before. We clearly weren't stealing their signs.
Yeah,
I'll answer it.
It was just wild. No, thank you. I think Peter and I were just insanely curious when that all went down. It was a weird situation. And I of course like to go to battle online no matter what it is. So it was fun for me to antagonize them over that. But before I got one more question for you, just kind of a off the cuff question or whatever. But Mike Arico told me I had to say hi for him. He's a buddy of mine. He sits next to me at games. Pete knows him too, but yeah, he would have been mad at me if I didn't say hi.
I love Mike. He was one of our very first alums to reach out, and he hit a home run in an alumni game for about 4 or 5 years in a row. He looked like he could still play there for a while. And then I started kind of getting after him when he started. I thought he was following soccer and basketball a little bit more than us. I called him a front runner, but no, he's one of my favorite alums. I love the guy. So good stuff. Good people.
All right. The Billikens go on a run this spring. They win the NCAA. They win the College World Series. Hollywood has optioned the script. Who's playing Darin Hendrickson in that movie?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's probably not going to have any hair by that time because that'd be a wild one. Let's think about that for a while. I'll say.
I have Gyllenhaal.
Jay, I don't know. I'd just be happy if that ended like that. I really wouldn't care if it was Ed Asner or I'm old, but
Alan Arkin.
No, I'm just saying. It would be an awesome deal that I'd have to think about that a little more. But maybe Dennis Quaid could come back as the rookie and play me.
I love it. That was a great movie. Do you have a favorite baseball movie?
I certainly I like I don't know. I kind of like, I like The Natural a lot. Just because it's more, I think a movie should make you cry if it's really, really good, if you're passionate about your sport. But, Bull Durham's certainly funny and one of my favorites, Major League, of course, those kinds of, or, how many times we watched those on the bus. But, kind of a corny, sappy movie I like is For the Love of the Game.
Yes, I wanted so bad for that to come out. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I love that
no,
movie.
it's good. It's about, the guy's washed up at the end. He's hanging on by his string, and we all go there. Like we've all been there in our lives. But those are, they're all good. I watch them all. I like 8 Men Out. 8 Men Out have an intriguing story. Although it's got a, terrible eye on the game, but there's some good actors in it at least.
No, John C. Reilly is the most unconvincing major league catcher in movie history.
100% agree with you.
Hendo, I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us. And honestly, you're welcome weekly. Honestly, during the season, if you want to come on and tell us how the season's going, come on. I know it's hard for people to keep track of it. Being that it's on ESPN Plus maybe once a weekend, which is unfortunate. But again, thank you for coming on. It's good to sit down and talk with you.
Hey, listen, I'm glad the Bills beat Richmond today. I love what soccer did all fall, and I think the momentum is going crazy right now. I'm really proud to be a Billiken, and I cannot thank you guys enough for your passion and your just eagerness to cover us and to keep the fans informed, because I think like I said, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think people, when they really dive inside Billiken athletics as a whole, would find it's a pretty cool place, and it's got massive growth potential as far as we've gotten so much better. And like I'm going to keep saying that, but it could be really good, and I want people to understand that. So I appreciate everything you guys do, and I'm really, really happy we beat Richmond today, because I'm a great big basketball fan and a great big Billiken fan across the board, and I love what soccer did this fall, and we all fed off of it. So everybody wins, we win, and that's where we're at.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yep. See ya.
See you.
Peter, that was a lot of fun. Wow, that was a good time.
That was great. I'm ready for baseball season already. I mean, not just because a cold snap is hitting the lower Midwest right now, but yeah, he's got me excited for the season. SLU and talking a little Cardinals there too. I'm ready for baseball already.
Yeah, I mean that he really is. I think at one point I said, give the man a lifetime contract, and that is hyperbole, but at the same time, he really is kind of the perfect head coach for Billiken baseball in a lot of ways.
He's a local guy. He gets like he said, he knows what it is to recruit this region, the challenges that come with it. He knows the institution. He understands the mission. He understands the academics. He's as perfect a fit as we've seen in that job. So yeah, as long as we can keep him, and I'm hoping, like he said, getting a little antsy. I hope we can find those donors to kind of do a little bit more with the baseball complex. I know some of us, hardcore SLU fans have been talking about it for years, but man, wouldn't it be great to just kind of beef up that sports complex a little bit more, make those the baseball, softball, and even soccer add a little bit to make them more true stadiums.
We could have. I think we had to. Me and you both had to bite our tongues there for a minute, and
yeah,
not that we were going to say anything bad, but I think we could have literally turned. Me and you could have turned that into just an interview, like the old Chris Farley SNL bit.
Yeah,
man. You guys should build a press box. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think.
What if you had a concession stand that served soccer and baseball? That'd be awesome. Like
exactly.
That's literally what it could have turned into 45 minutes of us just doing that.
Totally. And because we as fans know what we would want there. So of course, like you said, just it's a set of bleachers, and it's not easy, whether it's a chilly early April day or whether all of a sudden it's mid-May and it's 90 unseasonably warm all of a sudden. It's just not a really easy place to sit for a few hours. So hopefully we've got the big donors who listen to this show will band together, and we'll obviously bang the drum as loud as we can in our limited reach, but would love to see more momentum. Maybe they can build off the Champion Center a little bit.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to brag for a second. One thing we didn't get in that interview is that he listens to the show. So yeah, thanks for listening. Jeez, like that's one of those things that just doesn't even like register properly in the moment, and then you think about it later, and you're like, my goodness. But yeah, we got basketball to talk about. The Billikens got to.
Yeah, Pete, we got basketball to talk about. The Billikens got a game in. By the way, sorry if there's an issue with the sound quality. Again, still dealing with the microphone issue. But we'll soldier on. We got basketball to talk about, Pete. I truly can't believe we got a game in. I was very pessimistic. I had no expectations, honestly, that we'd get a game in today, let alone expectations for what would happen in that game.
I have basically come to the point where, like, until the ball is tipped. Like, because I mean, think about like the early days of the pandemic where we saw teams shooting around and just leave the court. So until the game is actually underway, I'm like not counting on anything. But yeah, not only did we get a game after a prolonged break, we got a pretty good game.
Yes, and I think the irony of the whole debacle that was the return to play from Christmas break is that the only player that was missing was an ankle injury.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ford made it sound like he wouldn't know who was available until this morning. And then we saw them roll out with a pretty unusual starting lineup. So I don't know. I'm going backward in the timeline to like look at his quotes, to look at what Stu Durando had been writing and tweeting and stuff.
I think Travis Ford is a master of misdirection.
Yeah.
I said this on the message boards. I said, what are there rules that says that Travis Ford has to be truthful?
It's almost like Bill Belichick with injury reports.
Yeah, no, like, I'm not saying he's being malicious in any way, but like, why would you tell if you don't have to? If you can hide behind whatever what's the medical,
Yeah, HIPAA or whatever.
Yeah, if you can
privacy.
hide behind the privacy, like, hell yeah. I'm not telling you how many players I have in COVID protocol.
Yeah, and to kind of throw up your hands and say it's confusing. I don't know what the rules are right now. Everything's evolving on the fly.
Just like you have early onset dementia. I don't know what's going on.
And lo and behold, all 14 A10 teams were supposed to play today. 7 home game, 7 different home sites, and we're the only one that went. Everybody had been talking about how SLU seems strict relative to the conference, and here we are. I have no idea what's going on at all the others. All I know is we're back, and like you said, the only guy we didn't have is still nursing the ankle injury we saw him go off against Auburn with.
Yeah, Travis Ford did his best Logan Roy, much like I did my best Logan Roy on the College Basketball Stories podcast.
That's right.
He just feigns confusion. I love that. By the way, I'm almost caught up on Succession, by the way. So I don't
think Ford pits his children against one another, as far as I know. But other than that, yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, let's talk about this game. So Linson is out, and your reaction is what?
Well, that's not great because coming off long breaks like this, like the one we saw last year that was more than double this long, it's not a recipe for like efficient offense. And we have a guy in Linson who's pretty reliable around the rim and from the free throw line.
And we were not reliable at the rim in this game at all.
No. And still won it. So that's where I was a little worried. And then also, they've got they've got some decent size. I've always thought this current Richmond team, which feels like we've been playing the same roster for like 5 or 6 years now. They've got some decent size, but they are pretty soft, which to me is a favorable matchup for Linson. Not to call him soft, but a guy who can kind of take advantage in that front court. And when you switch him and Okoro in and out, that could be a pretty effective 1-2 punch there. So yeah, I thought I don't know. I was a little worried about not having Martin available for this one.
What did you think of Lassina Traore and his contribution in this game? I thought he held his own pretty well, and I thought it was a nice little subplot in the game where you look at. Well, anyway, I'll get your opinion, and then we'll get into that subplot.
I thought they were good minutes. 10 minutes, 6 points, 4 rebounds. I mean, if that's what you told me he was going to give you before the game, I'd say, of course. Yeah. I mean, he's a freshman big who hasn't played much. And he's +7 when he's on the floor. So absolutely, I'll take that any day. Those are really solid minutes out of him.
Yeah, and the subplot I'm referring to is the kind of the substitution war that was going on in the front court between Travis Ford and Chris Mooney. You had Grant Golden was the main go-to guy for Richmond, and obviously Okoro, the go-to guy for SLU with Linson out. And so you had two coaches with one dominant big man on their team. And that I won't call Grant Golden dominant in any way, shape, or form. I mean dominant in that he dominates the minutes for that team. And so you had Matt Grace, who stinks on ice, and you have Lassina Traore, who is a freshman, big, very raw, but has shown flashes of really productive minutes. And it was just them two trying to figure out how long can I leave in Traore again if he's up against Golden, or can I make sure Traore is in the game if Golden comes out? And it just kind of was a little bit of a chess match.
Yeah, it was. And you know, some of that stuff I think is probably easier to kind of to see them going back and forth a little bit if you're in the arena and maybe didn't play on TV as much. You know, Golden was his usual self against us. He's always managed to be pretty effective against SLU, and you know he's going to play 30 plus minutes. I'm not going to miss him when he graduates, assuming he doesn't come back for his PhD or whatever.
I think he's older than a few of the graduate assistants on Richmond.
That thought occurred to me during the game, and I started looking at Richmond's roster a little more closely and realized that they must be one of the oldest teams in the country. I was like, this looks like, you know, BYU with a big senior class, you know, because all those guys go on their 2-year missions.
The Ross Varners of the world.
Right. Golden's actually only like the 4th or 5th oldest player. They've got 3 guys who are 24. Golden is one of 4 who's 23. And then they've got 3 22-year-olds and another who next month, Burton will be 22. So I just thought it was wild that they've got, you know, 11 guys on their roster who are 22 or older. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, you know, to see them go back and forth, like I said, didn't quite play on TV as much, but you know, the tough thing here, and even though Linson is kind of a limited rebounder for his position, you never like to get out rebounded by a team like Richmond, which we normally would not have, especially with Goodwin and French last year. So that was kind of the only thing that really bothered me in this game.
Yeah, for reference, Travis Ford, I believe, was 28 when he took the head coaching job at Campbellsville. So he was just 4 years older than at least that's my best guess on that. He was born in 69.
I don't think any of these guys are going to do a Wayans Brothers movie before they go coach somewhere either.
Exactly. Can you imagine like Gilliard as like I don't know. Speaking of Gilliard, I thought the Billikens did really well, not allowing Gilliard's steals and steal ability to impact this game on a major level.
He still wound up with 4. You know, so he still managed to kind of get his, and unfortunately, you know, a few of those came off the hands of Yuri Collins, who had 6 turnovers, a few of which I didn't necessarily think were his, and a few of which he may have kind of forced things a little bit. But outside of that, we only had 3 non-Yuri turnovers as a team.
Yeah, it was a fantastic, ball security game overall for the Billikens, I think. You mentioned Yuri Collins there. Outside of the turnovers, which may be a little high, what a game from the kid. I mean, he first of all, Barstool Sports took notice of his passing ability the other day and retweeted a video from Earl Austin, that the backdoor cut and the curved pass. But I mean, he's really starting to enter All-American conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah, he is. He's been unquestionably the MVP of this team. And today he puts up 24 points on 10 of 17 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, actually went 3 of 3 in the first half. And I want to say he was 5 of 5 from the field at halftime. So, you know, 5 of 12 in the second half. And then he adds 6 defensive rebounds, like we saw him, grabbing a bunch of those kind of longer rebounds against Auburn, and 8 assists, 2 steals. I mean, another masterful performance. He's a blast to watch. I love watching him run this team. And it's just, this season has been really an interesting one to watch his development and him take over.
I think he and Jimerson share a big time similarity in that both of them are really underrated when it comes to their ability to protect the ball at the rim and also finish at the rim. So not get blocked and get the ball in the hoop. Whereas, we did struggle with scoring at the rim from other guys on the team.
Yeah, I think that's right. They've definitely developed like we've never seen this season, into kind of knowing where one another are. Especially in the first half, Jimerson was just kind of right at the rim a few times, and Yuri just seemed to kind of know where he was. Like others have mentioned, this season, Jimerson is just constantly in motion. He's not just trying to kind of hope he gets forgotten about out on the perimeter. He's always moving, always coming off screens, always trying to slip through, and scoring in a variety of ways this season. And Yuri just always seems to know where he is going to be.
Yeah, I thought Jimerson had a little bit of an easier night as far as trying to evade Richmond defenders. There were multiple occasions where he was getting held, and obviously no calls were made.
Yeah,
but I thought he really did have a little bit of a more relaxed night than he normally does, which is I got to imagine a miserable night on most occasions for him.
Yeah, he only took 4 threes, which is less than I want to see him take. So he wasn't really finding his spots out there, but he did get it going inside a little bit more. And then and really did a great job drawing fouls, one of which was pretty crucial down the stretch.
He really does. He does embody that shooter shoot mentality, in that he is always looking to put the ball up and do it quickly.
Yeah, he is. I thought. Like I said, he didn't get as many looks from 3 as I would have liked, but I thought this overall was a good performance from him, and his shooting stats, weren't great, weren't the most efficient, but his slash line was pretty much in line with the team's slash line for the day. So even though you want to see him be a little bit more effective from 3, this has been how it goes for Jimerson this season. He doesn't have it working from 3, but he still manages to score somewhere between 15 and 20 points. And that's exactly what he did today, with 17 on the day.
Talk to me about, you mentioned the different starting lineup. And I think a lot of speculation was that, just because a guy is available doesn't mean he's ready to play 30 minutes in a game. And Markai Strickland, a guy who I just feel is an enigma. He gets a start and probably has one the play of the game, I thought. As far as just like not necessarily importance, but I just thought it was the get everybody out of their seat play of the game.
Sure. Yeah. His finish at the rim, finished strong, and then got the free throw. Unfortunately for Strickland, he comes out, he starts alongside Collins, Okoro, Thatch, and Jimerson. Now, kind of a weird lineup, because normally we start Linson where Okoro would be, and I think people probably thought instead of Strickland and Thatch, we'd probably see Nesbitt and Hargrove. So that was a little unusual. And again, Ford, master of misdirection. We don't know whose status was what, who's been practicing more, who's been practicing less. So I'm sure all of that factored into it. But also, Strickland is not an unreasonable guy to line up at the 4 in a matchup like this. Unfortunately for him, he winds up with 2 early whistles, and that's after 2. He had the pass from Yuri that he was kind of leaning. He kind of faded away when he didn't really need to. Missed a layup, got his own rebound, went back up, missed again. So he goes 0 for 2, and then winds up with 2 quick whistles, and he's on the bench the rest of the half. gets in for just a minute or two in the second half, and has that great play you talk about. Remains an enigma. I don't think we didn't see enough minutes from him today to kind of solve who exactly he is or what he can do. But there's no question to see the potentials there. His ceiling sky high. I would have loved to see him get double-digit minutes today, but unfortunately that just wasn't in the cards.
Another guy in the starting lineup, Fred Thatch, and I think he's been in a couple times, but what a pest he was today. I thought he was just like if I was Richmond, he would have just annoyed the hell out of me, I thought.
You look at his stats and it's 20 minutes, 3 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks. And you think like, okay, pretty quiet, but it's
where he picks his spots.
That's right. And it's his defense. I mean, like his defense is just undeniable. I thought a couple of the foul calls on him were questionable, especially the one that looked to me like just a great block. It should have been his 3rd block. And they give him a whistle and he winds up with 4 fouls. I thought that was BS, but yeah, when he's defending like this, you can't keep him off the floor. I mean, he's just too good.
I don't think we can gloss over defense, or I don't think we can talk defense and gloss over how good Okoro was today on defense. He had 3 steals and many altered shots. I mean, I think I need 2 hands to count the number of shots he really altered.
Yeah, and he had the 1 block. It was a big one, emphatic one. I should say.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, and finishes in his 30 minutes. He finishes with 9 and 8, and to me, not just the great shot disruption, but his patience and his decision making, especially defensively and offensively too. He passed a couple times when he normally doesn't offensively. So great decision making today on his part. 2 fouls in 30 minutes. That was, again, not having Linson today. That's one of the things I've always been concerned about with both of those guys this season is they do both have a tendency to get in foul trouble. 30 minutes, 2 fouls. Okoro just did a really nice job.
I will say one decision drove me insane, and I'm going to do my best. Earl Austin Jr. Dunk the ball, big man.
Yeah. Okay. There was that one, but I mean, it was
go up strong.
Kind of a theme with the team today that we were missing at the rim, unfortunately. But overall, I really liked what he brought. And somebody else whose energy I love today, and who maybe made a couple plays that I didn't love, but overall had a great day. Nesbitt.
Yeah.
Another game, another big energy performance, and again, doing those kind of little things, the hustle plays. It's the kind of stuff that Goodwin made a career of.
Yeah, he really does. Like you forget about him for a little bit. He's kind of unassuming for as like passionate and in your face defensively he is a bit unassuming and can get lost in the shuffle. But he made that really, really great. No. Oh, good shot, Jordan. Good shot. That little I think he hooked it around and put it in. And then I think he had a power move at the rim. And then I swear to God, thought he was going to get teed up for pumping his chest and talking to the opponent. I was like, easy, buddy, easy.
Yeah, he's going to get one of those days. And you're right too. Like sometimes he'll do something and you go, ooh, and then you forget like, oh, he actually is a little more talented than everybody else. This kid was kind of like a top 50 or so recruit out of high school. He can play. You definitely forget that sometimes.
I mean, player of the game, I think, SLU tweeted out their player of the game was Yuri Collins, 24 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, triple nickel for the kid, 10 to 17 from the field, 3 of 5 from the 3-point ranges. I think a breath of fresh air for Billiken fans. Not that he hasn't shown it before, but I think a lot of people want to see more of it from him. I thought DeAndre Jones may have had the hustle play of the game. I think I'm going to give him the hustle play of the game. Just an absolute incredible hustle play to get the rebound.
Yeah.
I think did he get a jump ball out of that or a foul? I think he got a foul.
I think it wound up being a foul.
Yes.
He got the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Outstanding work from him in this game and his very limited minutes. that kid just continue. Like I've been a huge fan of his since he got on campus, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's another one, like, it doesn't always show up in the box score, but he plays smart, doesn't try and do too much, lets the game come to him. And he gave us quietly very good minutes today. And like you said, a couple really big rebounds, for being one of the smaller guys out there.
I think the big concern in this game was the 3-point shooting, 26.3%. You can nitpick at the free throws, but I think Yuri Collins missed 2 and the game was pretty much done anyway. Jimerson missed 1 when the game was pretty much done anyway. And he had the 3 free throws that he made to seal the game after being fouled by Wilson. But talk to me about that 3-point shooting, man. I think it can be expected.
Absolutely. I mean, like, think of how bad our shooting was last season when we came back from that long break, and keeping in mind, a lot of these guys are kind of isolating in the last couple of weeks. They're not necessarily getting not just practice reps, but their shots. I doubt they're all getting the same numbers that they normally would. Plus, you've got Christmas and the holidays in there and everything too. So it's not, all of this is not a recipe to come out and shoot 50% from 3 in your first game back. So yeah, you've got a line like Hargrove who goes 1 for 9 from the floor and 0 for 4 from 3. I didn't think anybody's shot looked bad. Jimerson was 1 of 4 from 3. Williams only played a few minutes and missed both of his attempts. But I gotta think, like, once they kind of get back in regular schedules, that we're gonna see those kind of percentages come back to earth. And you mentioned the free throw shooting, and even though we did miss a few down the stretch, 75% I'll take any day. I think anything above 70 is kind of where you want to be. And this has been a pretty good free throw shooting team, even when the layups and 3-pointers aren't falling.
Yeah, absolutely. Billiken's come away with a win today. They finish off a game. They do what we've been asking them to do.
Yeah.
Richmond hung around, but the Billikens pull away late, 76-69 win. They start conference play 1-0. Hopefully we'll have more conference games here soon. The Billikens are set to play LaSalle Wednesday, I believe. But you mentioned some before we jumped on the pod.
Yeah, I think some people looked at Ford's post-game presser as kind of seeming skeptical that the game would even be played. Like I said, every other A10 team did not play today, and every other team was supposed to play today. So I'll kind of start digging in a little more specifically about what LaSalle's situation might be. But I think, is he misdirecting or not? Who knows? But I think we can't 100% count on this game happening. Now, I think SLU probably is feeling like they're pretty much good to go at this point. Everybody coming back, maybe with immunity from either having it, getting their boosters. I think they're feeling like not only are they going to play the rest of this season, they're looking at options to replace that non-conference game that they lost when they had to cancel Drake. So if they do have a cancellation with LaSalle coming up, and I know later in the season they have at least one full week period that they're not playing, don't be surprised if we see them try and scramble and get a non-conference game on the schedule here sometime soon.
Yeah, and I mean that could even be this week. You look at the Billiken schedule, and right now they're slated to go to Bonaventure on Saturday, and if LaSalle can't go, LaSalle had their game against Rhode Island postponed. There wasn't really anything in their release saying who was in health and safety protocols, I guess. It's a really tough situation, and that, like we said on the last podcast, and it's not even worth belaboring, but I mean, things have changed, and people are testing positive. That maybe wouldn't have, a month ago. So is what it is.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, I think they're just dealing with this current variant. It seems like
Yeah.
it's going to work its way through everybody pretty quickly.
I would love,
what it feels like.
yeah, I'd love to see them stop testing twice a week, no matter what. Like, I mean, I'd love to see them test, if symptoms come around. I really would. I think DeVal posted on Instagram story, if you went out on New Year's Eve, stay away from me for 14 days. Thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah,
But
that's a good one.
yeah, I'm just trying
but-
to, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we would be counting on LaSalle traveling to SLU, probably, tomorrow night or something like that. Maybe early Tuesday. I don't know when they would come in, but we'll see if they're good to go by then, or maybe they come in a little bit later. And if everything goes to plan, we've got them Wednesday evening, and then we're supposed to go to Bonaventure on Saturday. So it sounds like SLU's ready to play, ready to travel. We'll see what happens with the rest of the league.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to end up just kind of playing this kind of our episodes by ear, and maybe try and maybe do less previews until things start to settle down. I think we're gonna have to try to pour more into our reviews and our recaps and our assessments. But there's a lot of pessimism besides the Rhode Island game being postponed. A lot of pessimism coming out of Gola Arena. I think I saw a tweet somewhere where it was talking a lot about budget cuts and cutting programs, and I mean they really kind of made it seem like within the next 5 years LaSalle may not be in Division I, let alone the Atlantic 10.
We always SLU is perennially the program that's sort of we never feel like whatever conference we're in is our long-term home. You know what I mean? Like with Conference USA was never going to last forever. When you look at the conferences before that, I mean, those were always going to break up. So we're always thinking about the conferences and how they might shuffle. And I've always said conferences do not kick programs out. They just don't. It has to be the schools themselves that go, we're either moving up or moving down because we can't commit to it. So any fantasies that people might have about the A10 kicking Fordham or LaSalle or anybody like that out, it just doesn't happen. So yeah, I mean, we'll pay attention and see what happens there. It's not the first time I've heard this kind of thing about LaSalle. It does seem like they are maybe struggling a little bit to be competitive at the A10 level. Which is, I don't know, it's crazy to think because they're the ones who went on a sweet 16 run fairly recently, not us. So anything's possible, but yeah, it seems like they're having some trouble over there to maintain this current level anyway.
Yeah, just it's a bummer, and obviously, if it's a quote Darin Hendrickson, if a program doesn't want to be in the Atlantic 10, we don't want them. Yeah. That would. By the way, again, great talk with him. What a guy. Let's talk about Jordan Goodwin. He's in the NBA at least for a while, at least 10 days.
At least 10 days, yeah. So, which I guess he's probably coming up on in a few days here, but yeah, he's the first SLU player to appear in an NBA game since Willie Reed a few years ago. Had 3 minutes at Miami the other night. Another last week by now, I guess. Another 3 minutes against Cleveland. This game at home, and then he didn't play in their game against Chicago that ended in just with a crazy circus DeMar DeRozan shot after Washington had just taken the lead with a 3-pointer by Kuzma at the other end. So he didn't play in that one. But then today when this goes out, Washington does play Charlotte. So he's got another chance to play. And you saw him play against Miami in that first appearance. What did he do in that one?
It's that game was weird. Like, I still don't understand the NBA and that like the Wizards are down 13 with like 3 minutes to go. And they're in the game somehow. It's the most bizarre sport on earth. But I thought he had the really unenviable task of guarding the sharpshooters on Miami, Harrow and Duncan Robinson. But he looked good on Jimmy Butler, aka the guy from Office Christmas Party. It's just, it's tough. They're kind of, I feel like they've got, 2 or 3 10-day guys and hey, here's 5 minutes, do your best.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And it's hard. I feel he missed a couple of shots in that one, including one at pretty close range. And he gives up a lot of size, to Robinson and Hero for Miami. Sometimes we forget he is only 6'3". He's always played bigger, but
Yeah.
But yeah, so the next night he goes out against Cleveland. He missed a 3, but he did get a defensive rebound. Just not a whole lot to be gleaned from 6 minutes of NBA play. It's for us, it's just exciting to see him out there. Maybe he gets a chance tonight or in another game coming up to get a few more minutes, and maybe he does something that catches their eye, is all you can hope. It's just really cool to see him getting a shot.
That game, I tell you what, though, I really was enthralled by it. Like, I may have been, in an altered state, but like I couldn't stop watching it. Like it was a snooze fest of a game, but it's mesmer. I don't know why I was mesmerized, because I generally do not watch the NBA. I think it's just a matter of us not having a team, really.
Right.
Talk to me about women's basketball. They're going through it too.
Yeah.
Everybody is. What's an update on when they might play again, and what we already know about postponements?
Yeah. So we talked about in our last show, their Bradley game was canceled. They're not going to reschedule that one. If they do chase another non-conference game, it probably wouldn't be Bradley, because the stars would have to align or whatever. But they had a game scheduled for noon on New Year's Day against George Washington, at George Washington, that wound up being postponed. Now, the next game they have on the schedule is at Fordham, Wednesday evening. So it'll go off the same time as the men's game in New York. But we haven't heard one way or another what's going to happen there. As of right now, it's still on the schedule, has not been postponed. So I think it'll probably just require, the usual negative tests on either side for it to happen. And then they do have a game scheduled for Sunday afternoon against VCU. That'll be their first home A-10 game of the season. And just like Fordham, still on the schedule, but everything is TBD for the near term, I think.
Oh, it's just, I mean, we gotta pay respects as well now to Ryan Coleman, former Billiken assistant and all around great dresser, at least according to the Billiken basketball Twitter account. That polo was outstanding. Ryan Coleman passed at the age of 76.
Yeah, so Coleman, he only coached at SLU for one season, the 77-78 season, and he went 7-20. He replaced Randy Albrecht, who he was an assistant under, but wound up leaving early in the 76-77 year. And then once Albrecht was fired, they rehired him to replace him as head coach. So Billikens.com user The Torch kind of did his homework on this one. And according to him, because we always cite our sources here, basically the idea was to hire Coleman as a guy who could really recruit the local St. Louis market. And early on, it looked like it was going to work. He brought in Ricky Frazier, Mark Alcorn. He had Mark Dressler from DeSmet committed, and supposedly Steve Stepanovich would follow Dressler and come to SLU. But Dressler in the end wound up going to Mizzou. Frazier, struggled and wound up transferring to Mizzou the next season. Alcorn transferred to LSU, and obviously Stepanovic never came. So he was supposed to bring in all these guys in a short amount of time, didn't really pan out. It's crazy to think that it all happened in the span of the year, but he basically was asked about it by boosters and some of the higher ups at the tip-off club meeting after the season. He didn't play the political game well, kind of brushed off those questions, and they fired him a few days later. It's pretty wild, even by today's standards, to go, we're going to hire a guy who's never been a head coach before. We expect him to bring in all these local blue chippers right away. And when they didn't come right away, they fire him. It's just hard to imagine that happening today. Now, another point I'll make is he was the first African-American head coach at SLU. And that was actually well before most programs in the country. I think the first Black coach at a non-HBCU was only 7 or 8 years before that. So SLU was ahead of the curve there. But of course, when you're, the first to do it, you're going to run into some of the old timers and some of the politics and the issues that come along with that. So he no doubt dealt with adversity, that
beyond the
well, that's right. Well beyond, some of the political stuff and just that lingering old racism from some of these people that, it would be much different today. And to, he didn't know how to necessarily play the political game,
misconceptions,
deal with all that stuff. And then the burden of kind of honestly unrealistic expectations when you look at some of the players that he was expected to bring in and what they went on to be. They thought he was going to bring them all to SLU and make SLU just an unbelievable program in no time at all. So it seems unrealistic. The next year they bring in Ron Ecker and he tanks the program completely in the course of 4 years. So I think, maybe he didn't really get a great chance, but he's a really interesting story. He played at Mizzou in the mid 60s, averaged almost 18 points a game. He's in the Mizzou Hall of Fame. He started out as a head coach at Vashon, where he won a state championship in 1971. And then after SLU, went on to spend most of his coaching career at Lincoln University out in Jeff City. Interesting guy, never really got the chance he deserved at SLU, but maybe he was, rushed into a head coaching job a little before he was ready at the same time. So interesting story, and seemed like a good dude and will definitely be missed. And we always like to pay tribute to those who came before us on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, anything else before we get? No. And I had to look at the notes again. I have it like zoomed in because for behind the curtain, like when it comes to stats, I just snip them and put them in a document. So like I have to zoom in on them. So I just totally missed all of the stuff that you included about Ron Coleman. But yeah, anything else on the game today or our talk with Hendo?
No, I mean, it's if you fast forwarded for whatever reason, go listen to that interview. And if you like to tell people about it, that was a really good talk. And we'd like to have as many guests on here as possible, as you guys know. Not really much else to say except follow us on Twitter. As stuff comes down the pike, we'll be on top of it as much as we can be. A little tough to cover all that stuff, the COVID cancellations and whatnot during the holidays when we're spending more time with our families, but back to a more normal schedule this week. And hopefully college basketball will be getting back to a more normal schedule as well.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope so too. It's not easy on the brain and the nerves. And I think I told you this morning, I'm like, my baby face is gonna be gone if these cancellations keep happening. I'm gonna start looking, my age. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you again, Darin Hendrickson. He passed along a nice note too by email, right, as we're still finishing this up. So thanks again. Can't thank him enough. It's guys like that he talks about how it's important for us to, to bring the passion to, the rest of Billiken Nation, I think, but it's also huge just to see guys like him, Travis Ford, people like Katie Shields, buying into what we're doing in a way, because it is tough sometimes to do this, to hop on the podcast on a Sunday night after when you're tired. I mean, so to have a guy like that just bring compliments onto the show, like, that's huge.
Yeah. And really generous with his time with us as well. And that was fun. Hope to do it again.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Go Bills.
Go Bills.